Yum, yum!
Okay, hi. This is a little tip for Pixel Fondue about Substance Designer and Modo, and especially if you are using Modo since a long time, you might already know about the logic nodes in Modo. So I will switch over Modo and just get a fresh overview of the node. So what I'm talking about today is about the conditional node in Modo and the equivalent in the setup you can create to make the equivalent the same kind of nodes in Substance Designer. So here I've just walked through the different modifier and the node conditional, the channel modifiers and the conditional node that have all the logic here. So here I just take the case where you want to evaluate two different values and change the what is the output and not just get a false or true Boolean value out of it. So here it's the basic example. So the logic is, okay, I have a value A that is 21 at the moment, and if that's greater than 20, and that's the case, the result is true, okay? So this kind of switch node in this is the same as a switch node totally, but it also got the output value that can be changed. So of course, yes, you can output the value A or B, it's up to you, but you can also choose a true input value or a false input value. So in our case, I will go back to the previous state. We've got this setup. So it's the same as what I have on Substance Designer. So let's say you have a special case like this one. You have a texture set 1 and a texture set number 2. You have different inputs here and here the same, and you want to switch over one texture set onto this one if you pass through let's say 20, the 21, when it's greater than 20, I want to switch to the set number 2, okay? So I've created a texture ID, just a simple integer value in my graph, and I have this texture ID that goes from 1 to 32, right? And so what I wanted to do, of course, is use the switch node to change it automatically when I'm going from 20 to 21. So let's say we are here and we are displaying just the red color here because I'm mixing two different textures on the metallic and the roughness for Unity. Anyway, that's a different reason, but let's say you are at the 20 value, you will get the output here, the same one, okay? So I will double click in an empty field and goes to 20. So when I'm at 20, you see that the texture that is here is the same as this one, right? So it's working, okay? But here I have the 21. So let's say I will change to 21 and it's working, right? But when you need to build up this kind of things, you might guess, okay, that's a bit complex. I have an object here that I have a specific number of input, but it's not an input that is coming from 21 to 32 here in our case. It's just from 1 to 20. So it means that the input selection here need to be edited. So I will just get back to the default, okay? If I said I want to use the texture ID as an input to drive this one. Of course, this one will be just broken because it goes to 20 and we have nothing in 20, or okay, it's not working. So we need to do some maths here. So I will go back and show you what I've made. So let's get back to here. Here we have the switch node. The switch node is just edited in terms of nodes here, because they're just false or true. You have just a button. So I will maybe go back and reset to default value here. So you can just switch true or false this node. So the input is changing based on this. But if you want to automatize and get an automatic switch of this one, you need to, to drive it, right? So let's say I will open it. Here I have the texture ID that actually is, I will check the texture value. Actually we are at 20, for instance, okay? And if I go back to the switch node, I have the texture ID and I compare the value that actually is 21 and with the maximum input nodes that we have here, okay? We are at 20. I can directly get this as a control or also and feed this into the switch node, but that's just the way I've made it, just putting an integer that I know that's 20, okay? So we have 21 here, and one thing that I may want from the Substance Designer development team at Adobe, let's say algorithmic also, because we are we are all thinking about this, right? So anyway, maybe the developer can get visual feedback of what is the current texture ID value integer, right? Because here we didn't see it. If you have any trick on this, if there's already a feature for this, let me know in the comments below this video. I couldn't understand everything from Modo and Substance Designer at once, and I'm not expecting to do this anytime soon. But anyway, if you have any idea, that could be interesting. If there's a trick to show the current output value here, because that's not the case. When you are in Modo, you can just drag over the object, or maybe at the input, and you get the value. I don't know if that's the control or there's something. Okay, the result, that's the texture ID, but you get all the information there. Okay, you have still something that can show you the value outside of it. So anyway, let's say we have the texture ID and we know that's 21. We are comparing this input A and input B, and we have, so after that, a true or false. In our case, same thing. I want probably to get the feedback of the current value actually, but that's not. So yeah, please developers add this kind of features. And I'm then pushing this as a new variable drive by this node. I can set this as an output. It should be okay also. So at that moment, we are just switching this automatically. When it's over 20, then it goes to the true input, and the true input is the texture set number 2, you see. So it's easy for this one, but in terms of the multi input node that we have here, it's a bit different. So I will just shorten this one because we just need less inputs, right? Okay, so we have actually 12 inputs here, okay? But actually we are at the 21 texture ID value. If I get over 20, okay, so 21, then we are switching. And how I do this, you can see that the output, of course, I've switched to this via this switch color, okay? So we are over 20, so we are getting the input from the sets number 2, but also this one is still using the input 1. And it's not automatic. So as I said, if I go back to the default value or just plug the texture ID is over 20, okay? It's 21 actually. So as it's 21, the input selection cannot work, okay? It's over, it's in the void here. I mean, there's no input here. So of course it's just empty, right? So of course after that, the result is not the good one. So of course the output is just black, actually it's just empty. So this is why you need to create your own setup. So I will show you first with the first one. So let's say you want to do the same stuff as in Modo. You have a value A, a value B, and you want to change and do some actions on the true value output and the false value output, okay? So in my case, for this first node, I want to stay in a cycle, okay? So if I'm at the texture ID number 1, okay, I want to get the texture ID 1. I'm okay, it's working. If I'm scrolling and goes over 16, then I want to go back maybe to just 1. I mean, no, if I'm over 20 at 21, I want to go over to loop and get back to the input 1 for different reasons. You might need this. So it's the same as in Modo, but the noding is a bit different. So this is basically the equivalent noding function of what you have inside this node, okay? You have a value A, you have a value B, we have a value A, okay, texture ID, and a value B that is 20 here. We are driving this comparison node, and it's in a mode greater, so it means that we have the same stuff as in Modo, right? Here the good thing is you can change it. This is maybe one optimization that can be added to the Substance Designer noding system. It could be really nice to have the ability to change a node like this one, because that's just a logic node and I have a library directly here instead of searching it and getting it. Anyway, so we are comparing A and B, and we are outputting a Boolean value that is true or false. And with that true or false, you can drive an if-else control node. And why do you do this? Because you want to get a specific output value for the true and for the false state, right? So here I said, okay, if I have the texture ID over 20, then the result is true, okay? And as I said, if it's true, then you will get the number 1. And if that's false, you will get just the texture ID, right? So I'm getting this to the else. So it's working this way. If I'm going to 20, or just, okay, let's say 2, we have 2, we have the texture number 2 right here. But if I'm over at 21, then I have the texture 1 that is here. Of course, if I change it more, it stays to 1 because we've defined it in the logic, right? We have just 1. We have no operation in it, but it's working. And this pushed me into this specific node, because on this one, that's a bit different, but the same principle apply. Here we have, let's say we have the texture ID that is at, okay, 21. Let's say we have this in a visible, I mean, and we have this noding system. So we have the same stuff. We have the texture ID, the maximum value we've defined, the comparison, but this time it's lower than. So if A is lower than B, then we have the true value. And here we have this change. So what we want actually in a true value. So if we are less than 20, we didn't need the value to be output, right? Because if we are less than 20, we will use the texture set number 1. So as we didn't care, I just plugged the one integer to the if, okay? But with the else, it means that I'm using the texture ID that is actually 21, and I'm subtracting 20 to get the value. So it means that now when I'm here and I'm jumping from the texture ID that is 20 to 21, now I'm using this value, I mean this texture set, okay? Whoops. And I can go over, so 22, 23, and it's matching, okay? But now it's okay, it can go over and over and over till the end, and without missing the position, okay? Because we've offsets the value directly here with the minus 20, okay? So you can, if you have enough knowledge of how to do this in Modo, that's the same. We can reproduce the same stuff. Here we have a texture ID. The texture ID is 21, and the conditional node is looking for it. So here we will reproduce the same stuff as in the last node we've looked for in Substance Designer. So this one, we have a texture ID, a comparison node lower, and a constant 20. Okay, we have the same stuff in Modo. Sorry, I'm switching back to Modo. So we have a less than B. We have a 21 that is the texture ID, and a value of 20 that of course you can put directly here. It's okay, but just for the purpose I was making the same setup to show the same equivalence in between. And here we want the texture ID minus, so I will use a different system. We will use, oops, we will use this as the true, same stuff, and here 20 connected to here, so texture ID minus 20 goes to the false. So the false here is the else, okay, and here is the if. That's the same kind of thing. So if I'm 21, then you see that the output is 1, and that's what we wanted to get. So here, if I, let's say 26, I couldn't change it. Okay, it's linked. So of course I need to change it directly here. So 26. We have 26 at the texture ID, and so as the output we have just 6, right? Because we've offsetted. And let's say we show the same Substance Designer results. So I select here and look at the texture ID 26, and we will be at the sixth texture. So let's say here, that's this one, it's this one, right? We are at 26. So with that in mind, you can create your own nodes system to extend, the limitation of Substance Designer in some nodes. So for instance, the multi-switch color is limited to 20 inputs, but with this kind of setup, actually I'm going over, and I can go till 32 inputs, right? So this is really simple, but it can be interesting and can let you develop your own noding system. It can be interesting also that the developer at Adobe for Substance Designer can create some kind of an assembly that you can call from the graph library, like you do usually when you are looking at the library and you've created some nodes. It can be interesting to get this. I don't know if that's the case, but in terms of function, I don't know if there's a function like this built in directly, an equivalent like the one we have in Modo with this one. Okay, so this node here, you have the same capability to create it by using this one. Okay, just maybe we'll go there and look at this one. Yeah, this one is the more simple one. So yeah, let's have a look, and feel free to tell me if there's some solution, some faster solution on this, and if it was helping for your daily work. Have a good day and see you later. Bye-bye.
Yum, yum!